Hello. Recently you will have seen me working with these. It's a AJA Kona 4 video capture card, professional level, takes SDI input and will capture that to a PC or Mac. I'm using it with a PC. I've got two of these cards. Now you will have seen me fit one of these to a PC and do a short video capture demonstration, and that worked. But unfortunately that particular PC quit shortly afterwards. I'm sure that was a coincidence. It's just an old machine. So I bought a brand new PC from PC Specialist, and you saw me test that one, and would you believe that didn't work? It had an intermittent fault, and if I tap it, the power supply would shut down. But PC Specialists are great. I sent it back to them. They replaced the power supply and tested it, sent it back to me, and I've got it back, and it's all working beautifully. I've done lots of video capture using firmware ports, and that's all been tested, and it works nicely. So I thought, okay, let's get on and test these again. So I had two of these cards. One of them I fitted, and in fact it was this one. I fitted it, and it didn't seem to work at all. It wasn't recognized. If I looked in the software, it could say AJA device not recognized. So it wouldn't do any capture, couldn't do anything with that. Faulty? Maybe. We'll come back to this card. Well, I fitted this one and it ran. Worked. Captured nicely. I tested it for a while, but after about 10 or 20 minutes it would abort the capture. And it wouldn't capture again. It would say device not recognized until I rebooted the PC. Now, if you've ever worked with these cards before, you might already know what the problem is. These fans are a bit known for failing. So I set up to look at this fan. It's a little bit hard to see because actually the firewire capture card was in the way, but I think you can see here the fan's not spinning. Now I don't know if it's an always on 5-volt supply here, but I suspect it is. So I took one of these out actually after it had been running for about 3 minutes, and this is really hot. So that clearly was the problem. Now then, I need to see how to disconnect the fan, and it looks like it unscrews here. So I started with the card that didn't work at all. Let's see how to disconnect the fan. There's this rather tiny little connector here, and I pulled that off, and something cataclysmic happened. I pulled the pads off the board. So now okay, this card doesn't seem to work anyway, but we need to fix that. Now if it's an always on 5-volt supply, I should be able to find that, but it's not terribly easy to get to. Look at the back, the through holes don't seem to go all the way to the back. You can't follow any traces from here, so we're going to have to investigate where the 5-volt appears elsewhere on the board. And then, working with this board, which is the one we want to fix, we need to disconnect the fan and get a replacement if we can, or come up with some other solution. So let's get stuck in, and I'll show you on the microscope the problems I had with trying to disconnect the fan. So here is my disaster area where I managed to rip the pads off. So that connector should be down there, and well, I don't think I'll be able to get through to those through plating holes. It's obviously a multi-layer board, so I need to pick up where the 5 volts comes from somewhere else on the board. Looking here at the good one, well, the one that works for a while. Let's see if I can just meter out where the 5 volts comes from. Hopefully somewhere really obvious, like maybe these capacitors over here. Let's have a look. Right, starting with just a continuity test. So ground, I imagine, is going to be ground. Where are we going to pick ground up? Here? Okay, so ground is easy to provide. What about plus 5 volts? Let's have a look here. No, it's not on those capacitors. Where can I pick up 5 volts from? Well, it might be that the fan is controlled Is there anywhere along here I can pick up 5 volts? And that's reading 0.1 ohms on my multimeter. So that is a direct connection to this point here. So from this point here at the top of this capacitor, I can run the wire to the fan. So no harm has been done to this board in ripping that track off. Cosmetically not so pretty, but I can still get from there to... I wonder if I can even pick it up on the what's left of the land. Probably not, but let's have a go. Yes. There we go. Alright. So, since this is the non-working one, let's start with here to see how to remove the fan. The other thing we want to do, of course, is actually try the fan on 5 volt DC. Should I do that first? Let's do that first. Let's get 5 volts. And indeed, there appears to be absolutely no operation at all with 5 volts on there. Nothing at all. No. No current draw that I can measure. Maybe 10 milliamps. So these fans appear to be rubbish. Okay, let's see how hard it is to take this fan off. So it appears to be that there are screws here, and when undone they will take the pressure off this spring-loaded pillar. Let's undo these. No, that's just rotating. I don't think that's getting me anywhere. It's simpler than that. You simply squeeze these together and I think it will pop off. I was trying to make it more complicated than it really is. So just squeeze these together. Okay. That's those undone. So is it glued onto the top of the IC? I really don't want to break anything. I've done enough damage. I think what I'm going to try and do, maybe these should have stayed on. I'm going to take this metal bracket off here. You can see clasps either side. So maybe I just undo those and pop the metal cover off the top. If that's the case, these should be back on. So I'll put these back on initially. Okay, that's those back on. Let's just see if I can release these clasps here. Yeah, that looks like it. That's that one off. Great care. Okay, I think I've managed to release the bracket. Now it looks like the fan probably is this whole assembly, so I do still need to find out how to remove this from the top of the IC. Let's take a close-up shot of this, because I'm wondering if that's a thermal control in there. Maybe it only switches on when it's warm. So what do you think? Do you think that's just motor controller, or do you think it's a thermal switch? Well, there we go. That's what's in it. Perhaps if we look at what 7AB5G is, that might enlighten us slightly. No, we are none the wiser. There is no information on the 7AB5G. Oh well, I'll take the take these metal pins off again and see if I can very carefully separate the fan from the top of the device. Okay, so what I don't want to do is just apply force between the IC and the board, the top of the IC and the board, because it could rip the device off the board. What I need to do is apply a separating force between the fan and the metal top there of the IC. And the device that comes to hand for that would be a blade like this. So I should be able to insert it into just the right spot there, using a microscope perhaps, and separate the fan from the IC. Well, I've been trying to push this blade into that gap with no real success. But you see, if I put the screwdriver in there and applied force between the top of the fan and the board, then we would finish up with a video title with a clickbaity title of Idiot Smashes Up Several £1,000s Worth of Video Capture Board. I'm actually trying to avoid that. So I may need to take some expert advice on how to get the fan off. Let's do some research. So just for a moment, putting this one aside while we work out how to separate the fan from the BGA device underneath without ripping the BGA device off the board, we had this new PC, and that actually went in place of a black PC which I had there, which in its turn was going to replace the blown up white one, the one that looks like a stormtrooper, which failed. But guess what? That black machine, which was also about the same sort of age, when I moved it, it hadn't been used for about 2 weeks, and switched it on, it also didn't complete power on self-test. I'd switch it on and it would switch itself off again. Similar fault to the other one that died, not identical though. Actually, I did pretty much prove it wasn't the power supplies because I swapped the two around and the faults remained with the machines exactly as they were. So, one PC down. Now I don't have the money to buy another £1,500 PC from PC Specialist. What I could really use is another one of these HP Z800s like the one I've got here in the workshop. They're old, but they're pretty powerful and they're great for video capture.
Hey Dad, a great big box has just been delivered.
Ooh, what do we have here? Right, this is a PC that's expired, which was originally going to be put in place of the white one that failed, but this one has also failed. So we have a box of goodies here. Let's open this and see what we have. So in here we have a big HP workstation. Very heavy. But there's something else. An AJA 4700. Why do I have that? And here's our big workstation Z800, which I'm going to configure for video capture. Standard definition only this one will be used for. It won't be used with the Kona 4 cards. It'll be firmware only, this one. So here's the deal. Here's AJA 4700 Super VHS machine with time-based corrector, and apparently it doesn't give very good results. So I'm going to have a go at fixing that. It could be the soldering on the bottom of the lower drum assembly. There's known for dry joints there. So let's see if I can fix that. And for having a go at that, I get this lovely Z800. A big thank you to my pal Chris Squires. I've featured him before, link up there. So unfortunately, Chris, sorry about this. I'm going to have to work on the PC first and come back to the Super VHS video recorder later. Well, I'm assured by people who've worked on these in the past that I'm doing it correctly. That I do need to just pry off the heatsink from the IC and it should give, but I must be careful, I know I must be careful not to put force between the heatsink and the board for fear of ripping the IC off the board. So I'm going to have to just carry on using blades of this type or other such tools to separate the metal here from the top of the IC there. Right, carry on. Okay, so it was just stuck old heatsink compound that was causing that problem. So I can now clean this up. Now, remember, this is not my target board because this one appears not to work at all. This is going to be my target board, but I wanted to perfect the technique on this one. So I'll go ahead and clean this, but we still need to sort out finding a replacement. Now, I've seen some people do interesting things in other YouTube videos where they replace this with a large passive heatsink. But there's no room for that on my PC. I have the other card, remember, I have the firmware card next to this. So any solution needs to be fairly slim. Okay, not quite sure how I'm going to solve that, but let's at least clean this up. This heatsink compound does not seem particularly soluble in isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to have to scrape it off, I think. That's pretty clean now. You can actually see the markings on the top of the IC. So we just need to arrange for a replacement fan of the same type or something else that's going to fit. So I've managed to get these fans off, and they are still available from AJA in USA, but of course that means importing them and they could get hit by high import duty. I'm not saying I won't do that, but right now I'm going to work around that. I found there's a Chinese supplier that sells them. Well, not exactly, because the original ones were 500 milliamp and the Chinese ones I found are 350 milliamp, so they're obviously a little bit slower, but hopefully that will suffice, and it certainly looks mechanically the same. So a couple of those are on order from China, but that's going to take a long time. It'd be really nice if I could get my hands on something to get me doing the video capture, you know, straight away.
Special delivery.
Oh, thank you. Let's see what's in this, shall we? What do we have? So it's a whole board, but it's got the label on it. Does that mean it's brand new? Oh wow, I mean that is fantastic. So that'll have a good fan and that should be in perfect working order. Oh, that is absolutely amazing. Yep, that is brand new. I don't believe that's ever been opened. Fantastic. Okay, let's go and fit that in the computer that this board was originally installed in and do some video capture and make sure it works. It's the same model, Kona 4 ROSO1. Right, we have the Kona 4 card in there and working, and what I'm doing is set a color bars pattern from this HD cam machine, and that's recording happily here. And I've actually had this running for, well, yesterday I had it running for about an hour and a half before it ran out of disk space, recording very large file formats. I'd actually put my finger on the fan to make sure that the fan was rotating properly and I could actually feel it rather than see it, to be sure that it was working. And I'd like to say it just went in and worked, but that's not what happened. And what actually happened was a little bit interesting, because it explained why we had some trouble before. So when I put the card in this machine initially, it didn't work. It just said the same old thing about AJA device unrecognized, or whatever the error was. So then I moved it across to another PC, and here's a little story. Do you remember we had this PC here that looked like a stormtrooper, which used to be in a location over there? And what initially happened when I first tried the very first AJA card in the black machine that used to live over here, it was unrecognized. And I put it into that machine and it worked. And what I hadn't mentioned was it then popped up and said, oh, please do a firmware update. And I did that and thought no more of it. I didn't try it back in the black machine because I simply left it as read that it didn't work. Well, what happened with this new card is I put it into our new machine over here. This is the PC Specialist one, and it wasn't recognized. And I couldn't put it into the white one here because that is expired. But what came in that package the other day was this fantastic HP Z800. And I've built this up with Windows 10, it won't take 11 of course, and a few other bits and pieces I've modified along the way and fitted all the hard disks, and that's now available for video capture from FireWire. Oh, I've got a FireWire switch here to allow me to select all the different devices I have and connect them directly to FireWire port, which I've fitted to the back. So that's all well and good. I put the Kona 4 card in there and it was recognised. This is not where I need it because this is not close to my SDI equipment, but it was recognised. So it then said, I want the firmware update. So I did the firmware update, took the card out, put it back in this PC Specialist machine, and hey presto, it worked. So I think what we take from this is some machines, these cards will not be recognised until you've done the firmware update in a machine that will recognise them. If anybody knows anything about why that might be, please leave in the comments below. So we still have one card which was never recognised, and I could probably put it into there and do the firmware update and off we go. But it presently has no fan, so I'm going to have to wait for the fans from China, install a fan on it because it'll overheat very quickly without one, install one of those fans, do the firmware update, and then hopefully I'll have 3 cards in total, all in good working order. Now the other thing I wanted to show you was this AJA Breakout unit, and initially I tried it, and of course I was having the problems with video capture aborting after a few minutes, and I thought I'd eliminate this and cable up the HD cam directly to the back of the card. But now that it's all working, I'm going to connect this up again and prove that this works. There's a light there that lights up when it's powered up, so obviously it takes power. There's more to it than just interconnects. So let's hook that up and prove that that works. Right, it's now connected up to the control panel. Please ignore the FireWire switch at the top here, that's not relevant to what we're doing today. Power light is on, so there's a big multi-way connector here, but what might not be incredibly obvious is you also have to connect up the BNC to whatever they are, miniature RF connectors. Those, as well as a multi-way connector, need to be hooked up. Kind of eluded me at first, that. And we have 2 SDI inputs here. These I think are normally set to output. It may be possible to configure them for input, I'm not too sure. The software here allows us to configure which input we're going to use. So I'm going to go, we could go auto, and it will see where there's a signal. I'm connected, presently the HD cam machine is connected to SDI 2. So that's automatically selected that one. It's automatically selected the resolution. It's 1080i 25 frames, and audio source is connected as well. So now that's using the control panel software, using the control room software. We can now do video capture, so you see the audio channels and our color bars, and we can just record and do a long test recording on that and confirm that that's all working properly. So we have it fully working. That's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? If I want to connect a monitor to this now, I could connect via SDI to my SDI monitors or HDMI to an HDMI monitor. So I have plenty of possibilities. Oh, plus also analog outputs here. So that's YUV connectors along here, along with audio. So we have every kind of monitor covered, including a PC monitor. We could connect old RGB PC monitor. So every possibility, but unfortunately I don't actually have a monitor connected to this at the moment. I'll do that at some point. So these 2 cards await replacement fans. This one I'm going to have to connect it to components up here because I ripped the pads off where the fan should be, but this was the one that appeared to be dead, but now I'm fairly sure all I need to do is put that into a machine that will allow it to do the firmware update, and that should be good to go. Hope you've enjoyed working a little bit with these Kona 4 boards. Please come by later and watch me work on more audio and video technology. Bye for now.